Hello, Latin class. This is William, Will, John, and Turner, and we're going to be showing our Roman fort here. This is based on a mile castle fort at Hadrian's Wall, built in about 122 AD by the Emperor, shockingly, Hadrian. So we're going to fly around it, and John is going to tell you about the wall.
So like William said, this is modeled after Hadrian's Wall. And see here around the whole camp, we have the wall, which was stone, about 3 meters wide and 5 to 6 meters tall. There were guard towers at each corner for the gates on the east, west, north, and south sides. And all along the wall you can see here there are crenellations, as there were on a typical Mount Castle of Hadrian's Wall. There are also stone arches here, as you can see. And here we have a moat going all the way around, which was made out of dirt, which went up into the wall and surrounded the camp. And here as we enter, the main gate was called the Porta Pretoria, and from here the Via Pretoria ran straight to the front of the headquarters building, the Principia, which stood just about at the center of the site.
And so next we have the barracks, as you can see here. In a typical Roman army camp, there were 10 barracks. There are 6 on this side and 4 on the other side. If you go inside, and each barrack has 10 rooms. If you go inside, you see that there are 6 beds, but there are 8 soldiers housed in one room because 2 soldiers are always on guard. And there's also a smaller room right here where they stored their equipment, and there's also a fireplace for colder months. If you go down here, you can see at the end of each barracks there's a centurion's house, which is like a general. They had nicer houses. They had kitchens and their own bathrooms. Past the centurion's house is the latrines. These were for the common soldiers. As you can see, they're open. Not really any toilet paper or anything like that. If you look in there, there's running water under the toilets for sanitation.
As we fly over here to where the next few buildings are that will discuss.
Alright, so now we are going to be moving to the Granary, or known as the Horia in Latin. So as we go in here, you'll notice grain. The Romans kept everything very organized and in one place. However, we could only base this off an image we found online, as some of these structures, such as the Granary, were built out of wood and have decayed over time. Alright, as we move on, we see the hospital, or known as the Legionary Eagle. This as well is made out of wood and has decayed over time, so we also base this off the picture. You'll notice that there is water down in the corner, and they did this because the Romans were very actually advanced in medicine and kind of knew what they were doing. They also gave each patient their own space, so no diseases would pass on or anything like that.
So now flying over to the next little segment is the commander's building, which John built.
Yes, this was also referred to as the Pretoria in Latin. As you can see here, with all the trees and the flowers and the nice fountain in the middle, it really represented a more lavish style of living for the higher up commanders in some of these military camps. So yes, it was very nice and had bedrooms even and kitchens, as we're about to see right here.
Kitchens,
yes.
bedrooms.
And so this house was for the commanding officer and was typically based on a typical Mediterranean atrium house that was favored by some of the Roman ruling classes. And these villas were also designed to provide shade and escape from the heat. Consequently, the living quarters are all arranged around this open courtyard.
Next little area are the stables.
Alright, so these are stables, or known as stabulum. And unfortunately, they are made of wood. I feel like that's all the ones I've got, so I don't have much to talk about. But there were, as you notice, there's a caretaker's house right over to the side, where he basically was a maintenance worker. And so we basically just based this off of the barracks. We made them similar sizes. There wasn't much we could really work with, so we did this to the best of our abilities.
Yeah, as much the case with most of these structures, the historical evidence is what you can find in the ground. If they're made out of wood, you don't really have much evidence, and any kind of upper floors are harder to find. Dead here in the center, we have the main command building. And this was the main building where basically everybody met and the way that the camp was operated. So right here in the middle, we have a field that was usually covered with just normal dirt, but this in case we have here is basically clay so that it looks a little bit nicer. Where all the soldiers would meet, every soldier in the entire camp would be able to fit in this area so that the commanding officers could stand on this stage and give any announcements that they needed to, such as what they were about to do. Next in here, this is the actual main structure here. This building has a very interesting problem with its original architectures because we know that there was this large room in here, but what it was used for, not very many people know. Many people speculate that it was a area that the officers used to meet before they went out and talked to the soldiers. Other people say there were offices in here. We do know that in this area there were offices, so this is just kind of an equipment for an office where you have basically a table and some benches where you can talk. Same thing with this room over here. We do know that there was a second floor. There were stairwells on either side. However, what was on the second floor isn't really known. It's assumed to be offices, although that's all deteriorated over time. Here in the middle, there was known to be a skylight so that the entire building could be lit up during the day, and it wouldn't get too musty in there. This area was where they stored the Legionary Eagle and any other awards that the Legion had. So this is supposed to be a Legionary Eagle. Take our word for it. I know it doesn't look like it. Down here, underneath where the Legionary Eagle was where they store all of the soldiers' pay. So this is where they store all the gold to basically pay for the soldiers' upkeep. And then going back up here, oh yeah, and by the way, the Legionary Eagle's room was very nice. So it had carpets, it had lavish decorations, it was very pretty. Over here was the shrine where soldiers could come and pray to the gods. So we have our Roman murals here on the wall, definitely 100% accurate. We have our gift to the gods, which just so happens to be a cake. Reminders that you will eventually die, so you need to pray to the gods. And then we have something for basically you will die and kind of Mars with the sword, just so that it's a reminder that that's kind of the life of the soldier. And some herbs that the priests can use to, stay fit. This in case it's just a mushroom. Also a very nice room because it's got carpeting on the floor. And that about wraps it up for our entire base here, our Roman Castra. And so now we're about to do a final overhead. Gentlemen, you have any more comments?
This was like a really fun experience. I didn't know much about Roman military or cities, and I know other groups did something different than we did, but it wasn't just a messing around activity. We did learn a lot.
Yeah, and a lot of work went into it also. Before we could even start construction on this area, we had to flatten out all the land and, take care of all the sheep and various animals, and then create this, which is, accurate and indicative of what an original Roman fort probably would have looked like. So it was a very rewarding project.
Okay, well thanks for listening, and that concludes the Roman Minecraft project. Peace.